Buongiorno a tutti. I'm sorry I don't speak Italian.
Not yet.
Thank you for the introduction. I heard Digia in there and I heard Cute, but I don't know everything you talked about. So hopefully you didn't set the expectations too high. Thank you for being here. Thank you. A lot of you were here yesterday. It was a very good day for us. We had a lot of fun. There's a couple of new faces here. That's good to see. So my name is Nils Christian Roscher-Nielsen. It's a long and unpronounceable Norwegian name. I'm from Digia, and we are the ones who create Qt. We are the, well, I'll go through a little bit of the history and how we've come to where we are. I work as a technical sales engineer. I'm based out of Oslo, but I travel quite a lot in Europe, together with several of my colleagues. And Nicholas is here. He will be giving a technical talk later today. And my colleague Veronica Yusuf is here. She is the account manager for the Italian customers. We have a stand outside, so if after this session there is still something about Qt you are wondering about, if everything isn't completely clear, then please do just come to us and ask questions, and we can have a chat later. So this is a little bit about the Qt path, as we call it. A little bit about the history. I'll go through that fairly quickly and look at some of the roadmap, what we've just put out and what we're going to put out from a technology point of view. We'll go briefly through the history. Qt was founded in 1994 by two Norwegian guys called Eirik Ein and Håvard Nord. Håvard is on the left there and Eirik is on the right. And this year we actually have a 20-year anniversary. It's 20 years since the company was first founded and the Qt technology was put to the market. So it's been a very long journey, and we've introduced a lot of features over those 20 years, a lot of things. Just wanted to show this. This is a fax that Eirik sent to Håvard, and it's the first technical draft of Qt. This is the first design sketch of what Qt was going to be. And you can still see, I don't know if the resolution is very high, but you can see that there's a number of elements here that are still exactly the same. QObject, QMetaObject, QPainter. There's a lot of concepts that we're still using in exactly the same way as they were designed in 93, 94. A lot of things have changed as well, thankfully. I think a lot of things are going to change over the course of the next 20 years as well, but Qt is still going to be there. In 1992, we put out Qt 2, and by that time, only X11 was open source. Windows, we had Qt Windows, but still closed source. In 2001, we put out Qt 3.0, where we open sourced the Mac port of Qt as well. So this is a commercial poster for Qt 3.1, and it's sort of a construction site saying that you can build anything with Qt. And if you look at the tagline here, a lot of the concepts, a lot of the ideas for what the value of Qt is, it's still exactly the same thing. I mean, build more in a shorter time, compiled anywhere, target any platform. This is years and years ago, but it's still the same value proposition. In 2004, we organized the first Qt Developer Days. That's 10 years ago now. It was the 10th anniversary of Qt Developer Days last fall. So this is a picture from that Berlin event, and it's a bit dark. Sorry about that, but there are at the 10th Qt Developer Days, there were still a lot of people there who actually attended the first one, and some of them have been to all of those events. So Qt has a very strong and very stable user group. A lot of people that start using Qt, they just fall in love with it and they never stop. But we have been attracting also a lot of new users over the years. In 2005, we introduced Qt 4. This was the cake we had in the Oslo office at the Qt 4 release. And at that time, we also open sourced the Windows port. So that was the first time Qt really became what it is today with a fully open source model. And a lot of people started using Qt because of that. With every major release we put out, of course we change, we break binary compatibility, we introduce new things. That's the whole point of a major release. And I think Q3 to Q4 was the biggest change in API when we did the biggest break in code compatibility. And there was a number of people who found it very difficult to migrate from Q3 to Q4. In fact, in Q4.8 and even every version of Q4.8 that comes out today, we still support the Q3 support classes so that people still have Q4 code that depend on Q3 functionality. I don't really recommend that, but that shows, and I think we learned a lot from that. And talking a little bit about Q5 later, I think we learned a lot from that Q3 to Q4 migration. Things that we hopefully didn't repeat when we put Q5 out. For every release that we put out, we usually take a release photo of the teams involved. This was a little bit after we had been acquired by Nokia. Somewhere deep in the middle there's my face as well. This is taken on the roof terrace of the Oslo office, the big one, and it's the Brisbane office and it's the Berlin office. So this can not be more than 6 to 12 months after we have been acquired by Nokia. I'm not entirely sure which release of Qt this was, but probably Qt 4.6 or something. And this is a tradition that we've had for a very long time. So for every release, we take a release photo of the R&D teams involved in the release and post them on our blogs. In 2008, Trolltech, who had been developing Qt for all that time, were acquired by a fairly large Finnish mobile maker called Nokia. We did a number of things back then. I think Nokia, a lot of old-time Qt users didn't necessarily like that. It was a lot of talk in the forums, what is Nokia going to mean for Qt? It meant a lot of funding. It meant that we had the money and the people to invest in developing Qt further. In 2009, we introduced the LGPL license, so we really made Qt accessible to a lot more people. And we also introduced the Qt project. So Qt was really becoming open source and really becoming developed under such a model that more people could contribute, more people could be part of the whole Qt ecosystem and partake in what the direction of the product would be. We released Qt for Symbian, Bell, and for MeeGo, the Nokia N9, which in my opinion is still one of the best phones in the market with regard to user experience, and a lot of the UI and user experience concepts of that phone are still, I think, a really high bar for modern phone makers to reach. Nokia also meant another thing. It meant that we really needed to focus on resource-constrained environments. Putting out Qt for phones and having a fast, responsive, non-intrusive version of Qt on mobile phones, and especially the Symbian phones, really meant we had to put a lot of work into resource-constrained environments. Qt had been used, and Qt was widely used on embedded platforms already at the time. But this really allowed us to focus on that, and it improved all of the Qt ports. Qt is a cross-platform framework. It is a fully native technology on all of the platforms we support, but for the most part, all of the source code of Qt is cross-platform. So the changes we do, the optimizations we do when we focus, for instance, on one platform, they tend to improve the whole product, not just that platform. So these Nokia years helped us to improve the Qt source code a lot. And then, 2011, we introduced the Qt project, as I said. And during 2011 and 2012, Digia acquired the Qt asset from Nokia. I was a part of that first wave or first movement where Digia first acquired the business aspect of Qt, so the sales team, the marketing team, etc., but not the whole R&D organization. So for a little while there was a split where we were working together, but for two different companies. And then in 2012, the R&D team in full was also acquired by Digia. So now Digia controls, owns the whole Qt team. We are the same people. Some of the people still working in that office in Oslo. This is outside of the Oslo office. We're there since the beginning of Trolltech. Some of the developers working on the most groundbreaking and the newest features of Qt today were among the 10 first employees of Trolltech back in the early 90s. They are still there. They were part of Trolltech. They were part of Nokia. Now they're part of Digia. So here we are taking down the Nokia flag outside of the office, and you can see on the right there it's Tuukka Turunen on the far right, and then Lars Knoll. So Tuukka Turunen is head of R&D coming from Digia, and have been working in Digia for a long time. He's now head of Qt R&D. And Lars Knoll is a long-term Trolltech and Qt developer, and he's the CTO of Qt technology in Digia and chief maintainer of the Qt projects. So these two guys are the head honchos of all Qt development. So we took down the Nokia flag, and we raised the Qt Digia flag instead outside of the Oslo office. So now Qt is really a Digia product, but it's a lot more than that. It's all the products that you put out. It's all the contributions that a lot of developers make to Qt through the Qt project as well. So that was a little bit about the history over the last 20 years. I'll look a little bit more into the history of the last 1 year. This is a roadmap presentation. What are we doing with Qt? What have we been doing and will we be doing in the next year on a technology point of view? Right now is in-between month for technology. It's a little strange to do a roadmap presentation right now because we've had an incredible last year. The last maybe 2 years, but especially the last 1 year, has been progressing at an incredible speed. I'll come to that in a few slides, but Qt 5.2 has just been released. And now is really the first month where everybody relaxes and lowers their shoulders, and now we're starting to look forward and figure out what are the next steps after all the things we've done now. So in December 2012, it's 13 months ago, but still, let's count it for this year, we released 5.0, major version. We broke binary compatibility, but we've learned so much from the Qt 3 to Qt 4 transaction that this really, it's a 99% source compatible version with Qt 4. You can super easily migrate Qt code from Qt 4 to Qt 5, no problem at all. But we have introduced a number of new concepts, such as Qt Quick 2, that you need to of course, write special code to utilize. There was a lot of new things, C++ 11, and the whole architecture is different, how we can integrate with new platforms, so like the QPA project. A very important thing that was introduced with Qt 5.0 and that impacts our release schedule and our roadmaps for all of the foreseeable future was that we wanted to move from a feature-driven to a time-driven release schedule. Qt, up until this point, had always been released on a feature-driven basis. So we said, for the next release, we need to have feature X, Y, and Z, and we will release whenever that's done. And that took everything from 4 to 14 months, and it was very unpredictable in terms of, it was predictable in terms of what you would get, but you didn't know when you would get it. So if you wanted to release a product and you wanted to base it on a certain Qt version, it was difficult to know. So moving to Qt 5.1, we released that 6 months after Qt 5.0. Our initial idea was that it was going to be a spring and fall release schedule instead of a winter-summer. But Qt 5 was delayed. It was such a huge release, and that came out just before Christmas. So 5.1 came out just before summer. Here we introduced the tech previews for Android and iOS. It was the first time we had proper support for those massive mobile OSs. Qt Quick Controls, so that you could create desktop applications with Qt Quick technology. We introduced a number of new APIs in Qt 5.1. It was a very good idea. We also had, for the first time, proper online installers and an install manager so that you could much more easily upgrade Qt packages and Qt components. We've started to introduce a lot more enterprise content, charts, and other extended APIs for the enterprise model, and these were also easily maintained through our online installers. That was also a big leap ahead in terms of how we release and how we manage the source code. And then Qt 5.2 came out in December, again 6 months after the last release, approximately 360 days or something after the 5.0 release, so very spot on the 6-month schedule. But we still wanted to have a spring-fall release schedule and not the winter-summer. So the plan now for moving forward is to have a very short release period before 5.3. In addition to the Qt libraries, we also have put out a number of Qt Creator releases. Qt Creator, for those of you who are not familiar with it and who haven't used it before, is our integrated IDE, our development environment. It is a Qt application in itself. It's, of course, a very good example of how you can write Qt applications. If you see features you like, either as a user or just UI concepts you like in Qt Creator, you can go in and look at that source code and use that as a benchmark for how we develop Qt applications. We obviously have a number of code examples and demos that ship with the libraries, but Qt Creator is a large-scale, widely used product, which makes it different from examples and demos. A lot of features in Qt Creator, I won't go too much into detail. And Qt Creator 3.0 also came out now, a month ago. We chose to move from version 2 to version 3, a new major release, for a couple of different reasons, but the most prominent is with Qt Creator 3.0, we have now introduced a stable plugin API, which is a major point for what we call the open business architecture. Moving forward, we want to enable Qt users not just to use Qt to develop their own applications and sell to their customers, but also to develop Qt features, to develop components and plugins for Qt Creator, develop features to be a part of the Qt development framework, to be a part of our ecosystem and distributed and sold through our channels, so that you can monetize on those, and so that you can build your business also around extending the Qt feature set. This is only possible if you know that what you write will be supported in all of the releases that we put out. So we've done some changes, but now it's a stable plugin API that you can release your plugins against. Qt Creator is going to be released moving forward on I think 4-month release schedule, so 3 releases per year. So it's not necessarily completely in sync with the Qt library releases, which will be 2 releases per year. And lastly, the major product that we put out is Qt Enterprise Embedded, and or also known as Boot to Qt. A lot of people talk about this still as Boot to Qt, but Boot to Qt is only a part of the Enterprise Embedded offering. Enterprise Embedded is something, the culmination of all of the embedded work that we've been doing over the years, from the green phone that we put out many years ago, which was a Linux-based phone with a Qt UI and Qt implemented calendar and phone contacts and all of these features, to the embedded Linux projects that we've done with customers, the Nokia phones. All of this experience now goes together, and we have learned so much about embedded development and how we can enable you to much faster target different embedded hardware. Boot to Qt is a part of that stack and enables us to port Qt onto new devices very easily. There's a number of other plugins and additions in that package that enables you to quickly deploy and work with embedded hardware. This is, of course, a fantastic tool for prototyping because you get an install, one-click run on the device package from us. But it's also an architecture that makes it very easy for us to help you port Qt onto that end hardware that you're actually going to be shipping. So what we're supporting now is things like the Raspberry Pi and Freescale IMX6 Saber Lite from Boundary devices, and we know that these are devices that you will use for your development and your prototyping, but not necessarily the actual hardware that will be shipping your product. So that process is also a huge part of the enterprise embedded offering to help you bring the software from the prototyping device onto the final device. So this is, I showed this slide yesterday as well. It's a small summary of all of those different releases that we've put out over the last year. And I think this shows the magnitude of what we've been doing. And it really, I think, explains why 5.3 is not going to be such a feature-rich release as we've seen coming out the last year. With Qt Installer Framework, with Qt for iOS, Qt for Android. With Qt 5.2, we also put out a tech preview for Windows Embedded, WinRT APIs. We have so many things. So it's been, for us, it's been a fantastic year and a very interesting year. Briefly, looking at the content of Qt 5.2, I'll go through these slides fairly quickly. Is the Android port, which was stable at this point. The iOS port, so that we have now targeted the two largest mobile operating systems. And Qt has always been a cross-platform product, but now we are really running on all of the major operating systems, all of the biggest markets for people to target. We have a number of different modules in Qt. With Qt 5.0 or with the Qt 5 architecture, what we did was we modularized, it's a very difficult word for me to pronounce, we modularized the Qt architecture, and we disconnected all of the different modules from each other. They are now only depending on each other on public APIs. This allows us to much faster develop each module. We can test them independently. We know that they don't depend on each other. So it's also much easier to say what are the features that we've developed for each module. It makes it easier for you guys to see what are the features that you need, what are the features that might be important for your product that we are putting out. So for Qt Core and Qt Network, which are the two most used modules actually in Qt, we put out, everything is depending on Qt Core. Qt Core is the one class that every application needs to use. And all of the other modules are either essential modules that are shipped with the standard distribution, such as network, such as GUI. And in addition to that, the other modules that are not packed and shipped with the standard distribution, they're called add-on modules. And some of them are enterprise add-ons only, and some of them are add-ons for the open source usage as well. So we've done a lot of different work here in 5.2. GUI and widgets. There has been a little bit, after we introduced Qt QML and Qt Quick, there's been a lot of people saying that, are you going to drop the widget support, or do I have to move my application away from widgets onto using QML? No, we're still supporting, we're still maintaining, we're still updating the GUI and the widget modules. So we've introduced a number of new features here in 5.2, and we've done a lot of feature and performance improvements for them as well. Of course, with QML, that's where we've done the really heavy lifting. Here we've done a lot of work. because this is a much more, it's a much newer module, and it requires a lot more attention to be at the same level of stability as CubeWidget already is. In 5.0 and 5.1, CubeQuick depended on Google V8 as the JavaScript engine to render, to execute all of the code. We saw a number of problems with that, so over the last year we've actually implemented our own JavaScript engine from scratch to run CubeQuick. That enables us not only to have better performance of CubeQuick, but it also enables us to, as we've done in Cube 5.2, have full iOS support for CubeQuick. And as we will be looking at we have a WinRT API technology preview out with Cube 5.2. That would not have been possible without the new V4 engine. For the UI side of CubeQuick, we've introduced a new scene graph, complete remake of the scene graph implementation, and it's a lot more performant. As you can see here, smaller numbers are better because this is CPU load in milliseconds. So the UI performance in general of CubeQuick is massively improved in Cube 5.2 over the previous releases. We've also introduced in Cube 5.1 CubeQuick controls, and we are redoing CubeQuick or adding more features to CubeQuick controls in 5.2. This makes it possible and easy to create desktop applications using CubeQuick. One of the disadvantages of CubeQuick is that it's a very simple language, and in the beginning you needed to create all of the content yourself. If you wanted a button, you needed to design it yourself. If you wanted a tab bar, or if you wanted a menu, you needed to design it yourself. So CubeQuick Controls is our widget library for CubeQuick. It's a set of simple controls that you can drag and drop onto your UI. You can easily create your own desktop UIs yourself. In 5.2, we've introduced styling APIs that we integrate with a native style, so CubeQuick controls can be created and can be used to create native look and feel applications on the desktop platforms. This is also showing how important the desktop platforms are for us. This styling APIs allows us to start targeting the mobile in the future, but desktop was the first where that was very important. And in 5.2, we've also greatly improved the distribution of CubeQuick control-based applications. So in Cube 5.1, I think if you were using CubeQuick controls, you needed to deploy more than 100 different files for a simple UI, and that's been reduced to a handful of files now. Depending on the UI, we're talking 5 to 10 files instead of 150 in the last version. So many small and important improvements there. We've also launched Cube Enterprise Controls with Cube 5.2, which is a number of CubeQuick controls similar to the ones we looked at previously, but these are something we see as value add for our enterprise customers. And we've introduced a number of new modules, Cube Bluetooth, Cube NFC, Cube Positioning. These are mainly mobile-focused modules, but we can also write backends for these for any of the desktop platforms. And for the desktop platforms, we've introduced the Cube Win and the Cube Mac Extras modules to target specific features available only on the mobile phones, no, on those desktop platforms, and Android Extras to target features that are only available on Android. WebKit is upgraded, so there's been a lot of work, as you can see in Cube 5.2, a new version of WebKit. We've taken a snapshot from webkit.org. There's been a number of different improvements here. And I think this is important for all of you who look at Cube Web Engine a little bit later, if you've heard rumors about that. But we are still updating Cube WebKit, and it's a very, very good release with that. One of the key features I think of Cube 5.2 is full accessibility. for all of the desktop platforms. This is extremely important to all of you who are targeting any kind of government work, or if you just want to make an application that is actually behaving nicely towards everyone with hearing or viewing disabilities. And as I talked about, now we've introduced Cube Creator 3.0, both with the stable plugin system for the open business architecture, but also with support for deployment to embedded systems, made very easy, and deployment to the mobile OSs. Because of because of iOS's very closed approach to development, it's not so easy for us to integrate fully with the iOS toolchain. We have full integration with the Android toolchain. You can develop, compile, sign, and deploy your application directly to the Google Play Store from Cube Creator. No need to use any other tools, which is a very impressive feat in my opinion. I think what we did over the last year is we laid out a strategy. We wanted to be #1 in multi-platform support. We wanted to be #1 in developer experience, and we wanted to be #1 in creating great user experiences. And I think with all of these releases, with all of these features, that's really what we have been able to achieve at the moment. So I think we can fairly we can say that we have been very, very successful in achieving those strategies that we laid out. But looking now into the future, I think we still have a number of things we can do to even further those strategic points. Looking a little bit about Cube 5.3 and beyond. As I said, now with 5.3, we're going to move to a spring, fall-based release schedule. So 5.3 will have a very short time for committing changes, for doing anything. Those of you who follow the Cube project mailing list will have seen that the feature freeze email has already gone out. It's going to be in a very short time, so that time for really developing and coming up with new ideas with 5.3 is very, very short. We're doing that for a number of reasons, both to get in line with our timing goals of being on a spring-fall release schedule, but also we want to limit the scope of 5.3. We've been introducing so much new functionality, so many new things now, that we need to take one release, take one step back, and say, now we are going to stabilize and optimize all of those APIs that have been introduced over the last year. So this is really the stabilization release, the optimization release. So in 5.3, I would say the biggest feature is stabilizing and productizing all of the things that we have already been doing. So it's going to take a lot of work to make all of those APIs, existing APIs, as good as possible. Of course, this is also something that we're going to be doing incrementally for every release putting out, and the widgets that we put out in the late 90s are still being improved upon in the Cube 5 releases we're putting out now. So this is an ongoing work that never stops, but we want to take a much bigger portion of that work right now. But it's not completely free for innovation. With 5.2, we had the tech preview of WinRT APIs. And with 5.3, we're going to have a fully supported Windows 8 WinRT port. When we're talking about the WinRT API, it's important for us to have Windows Store app support. So it's not just about being able to run WinRT apps on the WinRT devices, Windows Phone and Windows tablets, but actually have them in the store just as we have with iOS and Android. Otherwise, it's difficult for customers to really target those markets. So that's very important. Windows Phone is an important device to be on. I don't know how important that's going to be in the market, but I think for us, that's not for us to decide. But we want to be there if it takes off so that all of our Cube users can very easily then target that market. An important thing to mention is that this is not an incremental update from the Windows 7 API. WinRT is a very different API, so it's actually it's a new port of Qt to a new platform, and that's why it's taking so much time, and that's why it is actually so different from the other Windows platforms. We will also be putting out a number of new mobile features and functionality. Qt Bluetooth is already there. We only have support now for the Linux APIs, but we're adding iOS, Mac, and Windows support, and we're adding Android support. A lot of these APIs, we have the API there, but we need to implement the backend to work on the different platforms. So that's not changing APIs in Qt itself, but it's things that we're adding new platform support. Qt NFC, we will be extending from being BlackBerry only to Android and further on to more devices as well. Apple have made the choice of not having NFC on their iPhones. So again, these are the things that make this whole ecosystem not fit so well together, but we are still doing what we can to make sure that all of these different devices are communicating and working together, even though the device manufacturers are struggling to sort of get on top of each other and outposition each other. And then in-app purchase and in-app advertisement are also very important issues for every apps that are in the app stores on the different phones. We're looking into different solutions. I hope that this will be integrated with 5.3, but with such a short release schedule, I'm not sure that's feasible. So we will see at the time of the beta which features are actually in there or which will be extended to Qt 5.4. The timing is a little bit unfortunate on my side because right now a lot of this is still being decided and a lot of this is still being worked at. While I'm here, Lars and Tuka and the other managers are back in Oslo, actually working out all of the details, hashing out all of the details for what our releases are going to contain over the next year. I would love to talk more about the content of 5.4 that is going to be released in the fall, but it's still a little bit too early in the year for me to have all the details. So that's something that we will come back to with more info about later. We're also going to continue working on the tooling. We have a lot of ideas how we can improve the Qt Creator tooling for iOS. But we're also looking into how can we create easy to deploy packages across the different mobile OSs and integrate better with the app stores. And of course, in the enterprise embedded, the Boot to Qt, we're going to continue to improve the tooling and things such as QML, debugging and profiling got changed a lot when we introduced the V4 engine. So there we're also going to improve the tooling a lot. Regarding the app stores, I think it's important that we are also taking a look, that's something we're going to spend this year on, a look at how we can facilitate the whole lifetime of app creation, not just implementation and deployment, but everything from the design phase to the implementation to the compilation and deployment, but also the update and how you can easily update those and keep those apps up to date. We are, of course, going to do a lot of stuff on the UI side. There's going to be more Qt Quick Controls coming out, making that more feature complete. I think there are things like calendars coming into 5.3. One topic I'm not sure when it's going to be released, but I know many people are asking for, and I know that we are discussing internally how to implement is tree view for Qt Quick Controls. And on Mac, there's been, we've had in Q4 and the widget API, we also had the unified toolbar on Mac, which we're going to introduce in the Qt Mac Extras package now for QML as well. So that's an important thing. We're working on improving the accessibility support that was introduced in Qt 5.2. Things like text-to-speech, etc. So there's a number of things going on there. And one of the challenges with mixing Qt Quick and widgets, this has been very difficult. So we're looking at better ways of having mixed UI approaches, mixing both OpenGL content into the widget API, but also we're introducing a Qt Quick widget so that you can actually add Qt Quick content into an existing widget-based UI. So if you have an existing widget-based UI, you can now add a Qt Quick widget to that, and this widget will then be displaying Qt Quick content. So making that integration a lot easier than it has been. Qt 3D is a module that's been around for a long time. It's been worked on quite a lot lately. We've been trying to integrate that as one of the standard modules for a long while. It's not 100% confirmed yet, but I have very high hopes that this will be introduced in Qt 5.3. So I'm crossing my fingers for that. And for a long time, we couldn't include it because the quality just wasn't good enough. Now it really is. It really is being brought up to a very high standard. So there is no reason from a quality perspective that shouldn't be included. And I think, WebSockets is something that we're going to introduce in Qt 5.3 as a two-way communication mechanism between the web page and the web browser, and the web browser being your Qt application in this case. So this is very important for creating those dynamic, modern web hybrid UIs. And this is a technology that's independent of the WebKit API. So regardless of what kind of WebKit integration you're using, this will be available. In 5.3, we're going to introduce virtual keyboard in the Qt Quick Enterprise Controls package. And there's also going to be an incremental update of what we have and some other features. And we're putting out Qt Creator 3.1. As we have a very short release schedule for Qt 5.3 now, that means that Qt 5.3 and Qt Creator 3.1 is actually going to be in sync, which is not necessarily going to happen over the next releases, but at this point we're going to have 2 releases in a row where Qt Creator and Qt libraries are in sync. And then the biggest feature on its own that we're putting out is the Qt WebEngine. And Qt WebEngine is something that's been a big topic. It's been discussed a lot in different forums. We've been talking about it for a little while. And the reason we're doing this, there's a number of reasons, but mainly because Google now forked the WebKit API. And while Google was still a part of WebKit and contributing there, we were not the only ones having a cross-platform focus in WebKit. With Google gone, Apple is really focusing only on iOS and OS X, and we are the only ones that will drive WebKit in a cross-platform way. And we don't see that as being very beneficial, so we're going to be moving to WebEngine based on Chromium. And I think for us this is providing a much better opportunity to have a fully featured cross-platform browser in Qt. We're going to keep the API as close as possible to the existing WebKit API where that is possible, but it's of course going to be a little bit of a challenge. The release schedule for Qt WebEngine is we're going to put out a technology preview now during January, so you can very soon download and play with that. And then the beta is coming alongside with Qt 5.3. And in Qt 5.4 in the fall, we will have a stable release with Qt WebEngine integrated. So that is a very interesting future, I think, and there's a lot of potential for new use cases with Qt WebEngine. And one of the things that we will be much better able to support is the embedded Linux platforms. There is still an open question with iOS and Android because iOS don't really allow, or they don't allow any other web engine to be shipped onto their devices. So we're looking at other solutions for integrating the native web controller into Qt for iOS. And on Android, it's a question of do you really want to deploy that many libraries and that much size? So we're looking at ways of not using WebEngine, but using the native web controls on Android as well. That's something that will not be part of 5.3, but it's being researched at the moment, and hopefully it can be part of 5.4, but that's not guaranteed. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. There's a lot more details to this, so if you're interested in knowing, come talk to us. I think we've seen that we've put out a lot of great products over the last both 1 and also 20 years. And we're going to continue to improve that and going to put out a lot of good quality products in the future. So with that, I just want to say thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free.
Yes, it's working. Hello. You said that there are native styling coming for Qt Quick controls, but is that going to be part of Qt Mobile, the paid version of Qt for mobile, or is that going to be part of the free version?
That's a very good question. Thank you. And my colleague Veronica is here with some T-shirts for those of you who ask questions. So first of all, a T-shirt for you. The styling APIs for Qt Quick controls are going to be available in all versions of Qt. This is not limited to any specific enterprise Qt mobile or Qt open source release. So these are APIs that are available for everyone. And as far as I hope we can release them openly in the open source version as well. There is one issue with Apple because they've patented a lot of their visual content, visual data. So we need to look at how we can actually implement that style. It's something that we're investigating now. Technically, it's not very difficult to do. But again, it's one of those things where the mobile industry is so keen on having as many patents as possible. So we just have to see how we can do it. If it's a distribution limit or something, it might be only included in the Qt Mobile edition, but I haven't heard that as a topic yet. It's not something that we want to do as a strategy. No. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. There's another one who wants a T-shirt.
It's not clear to me the difference between Qt positioning and Qt location, and if these APIs use the direct access to GPS hardware, or they use the APIs of the underlying platform, such as iOS or Android. Thank you.
They are using, we have different backends for the different platforms, so we will use whatever is most efficient. I haven't been a part of that development, that backend development team, so I don't know exactly what they're using. Good question. I can find the right people to ask and give you a better answer. So I just don't know.
Qt or embedded business model. What kind of platforms are you targeting? I mean, do you plan to expand the actual devices? I mean, since I've talked to other people and that said if it runs Android, basically we can deploy Qt on that. But do you plan to do this on a customer request or something like that?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. And Qt Enterprise Embedded is that product. And Root to Qt is the technology that allows us to target a number, like all of these different platforms. We support Qt or we support embedded Linux and embedded Android. So basically any device that runs Android, we can very easily port Root to Qt to, using the embedded Android base layer. And we can also theoretically port it to any embedded Linux hardware. What we're going to do is still based on customer feedback, what people are interested in having. We will not be supporting out of the box every possible hardware configuration in the world. That's not our goal. The goal with Enterprise Embedded out-of-the-box support is to provide a prototyping environment. So we will have a limited number of hardware that we support out of the box for, that's hardware that's commonly distributed for prototyping environments. And then the stack, the architecture of the stack allows us to help customers very easily port it from there to the corresponding distributed hardware. What you're going to actually distribute, which will be a similar hardware but different. And Enterprise Embedded Compute will not run out of the box what you download from us on that hardware you will distribute. So how are we going to help you get there? Is it a consultancy project? Is it free consultancy? Or do you have to do it yourself? It will depend on each case. It will depend on the hardware. Usually, you can do it yourself if you want to, but we will also be there to help you. So the idea of Enterprise Embedded is mainly to get you started on the prototyping environment, and then the idea of the stack is that instead of you spending 3 months porting Qt to that actual hardware, yes, it's still a little bit of work, but we're talking 3 days instead of 3 months. And then if that's a paid consultancy project or something you spend 3-4 days doing yourself, I still think it's a quite significant win for both parties.
Have you any plan about direct Python integration?
Python integration. We don't have any plans. That's not what we have on our roadmap. I know that PyQt and using Python as a development environment for Qt is very common and very popular, but that is a third-party solution. It's not something that we develop ourselves, and we don't have it on our roadmap to integrate that into our domain. Or we want to keep Qt an open project, and there's going to be a number of these projects adding value to Qt. And we really appreciate that, but we're not going to take any ownership or control that development.
Hi, I'd like to know if there is plan for make official support for Titan platform.
Okay. There's no specific roadmap for Tyson. I know that Qt has just been added to the Tyson platform upstream, so they are integrating Qt. I don't know. Let's see. I don't have a good answer to that. It's not been specifically written in our roadmap, so this is probably a part of that discussion I referred to a little bit earlier. This is what we're deciding on right now back in Oslo. So these are the topics that is being investigated and discussed. And maybe after 5.3 we can say something more specific regarding that. So sorry, that's kind of not an answer, but it's the best I have for now. Okay, I think that was the last T-shirt, so...
Now that you're investing a lot on Qt Quick, and with Quick 2 you have a whole new drawing stuff.
Yep.
Are Q widgets going to be left behind? Because it seems to me a lot of duplicated effort with the whole Q Painter stack and the whole new graph scene. And I have the feeling that with this, the whole part of the new stuff being added to Quick, I feel a bit cautious about investing a lot on widgets. But widgets are the stuff we're used to, we like widgets, and we would like to continue using widgets because they've been there for a whole lot of time and we trust them.
Yeah. For 20 years they've been there, and we've been using them and developing them for 20 years, so we have quite the attachment to widgets ourselves. As I tried to say, the platform is still extremely important to us. And as you see, both in Qt 5.1 and 5.2 release, we've actually done a lot of improvements to the Qt widget API itself. It's marked as the different modules have different states, and widgets is marked as a module that's done because it's been developed for 20 years and it's more or less feature complete. We don't get many bug reports, so there is a lot more commits going into Qt Quick because the technology is brand new. The Qt widgets, they are stable, they're working, but we are still concerned about them. In 5.2, we added small features like a clear button to the Q line edit to be in line with more modern usage of that widget. We're adding the Qt Quick widget and the Qt OpenGL widget that I just said in 5.3 to integrate and make widget-based UIs more modern. We are doing a lot of work on widgets, and we're not going to drop it. We have a strong commitment to continuing supporting and continuing improving on the widget API. And I think this is a topic that comes up time and again. But the only thing I can really say is that if you look at the commits, if you look at the, what we're actually putting into the code, we are supporting them, we are maintaining them, and we are also giving a verbal agreement that yes, we are going to continue to do that as well. Both with Qt 5 and what's coming beyond Qt 5, we will not be dropping Qt widgets. So I hope that's an answer good enough.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, time's up. Thank you again, Nils. You will be around here just for just if anybody has some more questions. Thank you. Thank you again.